You know that feeling when you are like inside your house, maybe under a thick blanket, and there's just a massive storm absolutely raging
Oh,
outside?
yeah, definitely. Best feeling in the world.
Right, like you can hear the rain thrashing against the glass and the wind is whistling through the cracks, but you feel completely untouched.
It's a very specific kind of comfort, for sure.
It really is. But it also comes with this lingering kind of unspoken question, right? Like, what happens if the glass breaks?
Oh, man. Yeah, that's the terrifying part.
Exactly. So today we are doing a deep dive into an architectural blueprint for human resilience, and it's actually hidden inside 14 lines of an Afrikaans poem.
14 lines. It's wild how much is packed in there.
It is. We've got a whole stack of sources today: linguistic study guides, literary analyses, and historical records. And our mission for this deep dive is to reverse engineer how a little house by the sea can survive what is essentially a psychological hurricane.
Yeah, and whether you, our listener, are facing a literal storm right now or just, a metaphorical crisis in your own life, understanding the hidden mechanics of this poem is really going to give you a new perspective on how to weather the howling winds.
So to start us off, what is the poem we're actually looking at today?
Right, so the poem is called Ek en Huisie by D.C., which was written by H.A. Fagan.
Okay, ek het 'n huisie by die see.
You got it. And what the literary analyses in our sources reveal is this piece of art where every single syllable is just engineered to test the boundary between the illusion of absolute safety and the reality of absolute vulnerability.
Because you're relying entirely on the architecture around you to hold the line against the chaos.
Exactly.
Well, if we are going to understand how that architecture holds up, I think we have to look at the physical world the poet is building first.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Looking through these study guides, the world of this poem is defined by an absolute jarring sensory contrast. There's this really stark dividing line between the inside and the outside.
Hmm. The poet sets that up right from the title.
Right, using a very specific linguistic tool in the Afrikaans language, which is diminutives.
Yeah, the title isn't just I have a house by the sea. It's Ik het een huisie.
Huisie.
Right, that iki suffix turns it into a little house.
Oh, okay.
And the poet actually applies this to the light and heat sources inside the house as well. So it's not just a fire burning in the hearth, it's a virtue, a little fire.
Virgie. Got it.
And it's not just a standard candle lighting the room, it's a kersie, a little candle.
I mean, I can see how that paints a really cozy picture. But on a mechanical level, using these tiny, vulnerable words against a massive, dark ocean, it feels like holding a tiny cocktail umbrella in a Category 5 hurricane.
That is a great analogy.
Thanks. But, like, how does that linguistic choice actually serve the theme of the poem?
Well, the linguistic guides emphasize that these diminutives actually serve a dual function.
Okay, how so?
On one level, they convey this deep personal affection. The speaker clearly loves this intimate space.
Right, it's their safe haven.
Exactly. But structurally, they highlight extreme, almost terrifying vulnerability.
Because a little fire is fragile.
Right, a virgie is fragile. A kersie is something that can be snuffed out by a single rogue breath of air.
Wow, yeah.
So the smaller and cozier the inside becomes, the more overwhelming the outside threat appears by comparison.
And the outside world in this poem is genuinely terrifying. I was reading this part, and outside you have the immense, relentless power of the ocean.
Oh, it's brutal.
The text uses the repetition of the phrase aneen continuously to describe the waves crashing against the rocks.
Yeah, it mimics the never-ending, exhausting rhythm of the tide.
Right, but then the poet introduces the wind, and things take a really dark turn. The wind doesn't just blow. The text uses personification in this very dark simile.
This is where it gets really intense.
It does. The wind howls, it groans, it complains, and the poet compares it to verloor sea, lost soul.
Lost souls wandering in need.
Yeah. Searching in death and the grave, completely unable to find rest.
That specific imagery completely changes the stakes of the poem.
Wait, so he is actively blurring the line between a physical threat and a spiritual one here, right? He's essentially weaponizing the weather.
He really is.
But why go to that extreme? I mean, why make the wind sound like literal restless ghosts instead of just, a bad coastal storm?
Because a physical storm is scary, but it's just weather.
Right. You can just rebuild a roof.
Exactly. By comparing the wind to wandering, complaining ghosts languishing in death without peace, the poet elevates the threat from a meteorological event to an existential one.
Oh, wow.
It becomes about psychological and spiritual dread. The storm represents the utter despair of being lost in the dark, without anchor, searching endlessly.
And you can actually hear that dread in the mechanics of the Afrikaans words themselves, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The study guides point out this intense auditory engineering.
What do they mean by auditory engineering?
Well, the heavy use of onomatopoeia is striking here. The wind doesn't just make a noise, the storm lowy, which translates to this low, roaring howl.
That sounds unsettling, just saying it.
It is. And alongside that, the poet uses intense assonance, which is the repetition of vowel sounds.
Oh, like the repeated A sounds in the original text.
Exactly. Those repeated rolling A sounds physically force the reader to slow their cadence.
I see.
You literally have to draw out the words, which makes the poem itself sound like the long, mournful moans of the wind when you read it out loud.
That is incredibly clever. But if the outside world in this poem is defined by that much absolute chaotic dread, how does the poem itself not just fall apart?
That's the million-dollar question.
I mean, the poet must need an incredibly rigid container to hold that much psychological pressure. You have the dark, dangerous, cold, haunted outside pressing right up against the warm, tight, fragile inside. It's a total pressure cooker.
It really is. And the structure holding all of this together is where the architectural genius of the poem reveals itself.
Okay, walk me through the architecture.
The structural analyses in our sources show that the intense, chaotic emotion of the storm is meticulously controlled by a very specific, rigid framework.
Which is?
The poem is written as an English sonnet.
A sonnet. So 14 lines.
14 lines, divided into 3 quatrains, which are 4-line stanzas, and culminating in a final rhyming couplet of 2 lines.
Okay, I'm with you.
So the first 12 lines, the 3 quatrains, are entirely dedicated to building the tension we just discussed.
Right. They establish the storm, the restless ghost, the vulnerability of the little candle.
Exactly, the sheer pressure of the outside world.
But the sources specifically call out the rhyme scheme inside those first 12 lines. They refer to it as omarmende rhyme.
Yes, omarmende rim.
Yeah.
Or, in English, embracing rhyme.
Embracing rhyme. The pattern is ABA-CDDC-EFFE. But I am going to push back here for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Because this sounds like classic academic jargon to me.
Huh. I hear that a lot.
I mean, I see the label on the page, but does a reader actually feel an embracing rhyme when they are sitting in a chair reading a book? Or is that just an abstract concept literary critics use to overanalyze things?
It is a totally fair challenge, but think about the mechanics of how that rhyme scheme functions, almost like architectural load-bearing walls.
Okay, load-bearing walls.
Think about the pattern, ABBA. The first line and the fourth line rhyme the A lines.
Right.
And the second and third lines rhyme the B lines.
Mm-hmm.
It acts like a linguistic suspension bridge.
Oh, that's an interesting way to put it.
The outer A lines are the massive steel cables anchoring the stanza, allowing the B lines inside to safely hang above the chaos.
Oh, I see. The outer lines are physically wrapping around the inner lines.
Visually on the page and sonically when spoken out loud, the structure is literally embracing the content.
Wow.
So the embracing rhyme mimics the idea of protective arms wrapped tightly around the speaker.
That is amazing.
Yeah. While the storm is raging in the imagery, the structure of the poem itself is holding the speaker tight. The form is keeping the inside safe from the outside.
Okay, so those 12 lines of tension are completely contained. They're tightly engineered to hold all that atmospheric pressure until the poem is ready to release it.
Exactly.
And that release finally happens in the final 2 lines. The couplet.
The couplet is where the entire poem pivots.
I'm looking at these last 2 lines, and I'm honestly a bit confused by the sudden tone shift here.
What do you mean?
Well, translated, they read, "Come night, come weather and wind, come ocean. It is a rock on which my little house stands."
Right.
For 12 lines, we are cowering inside by a fragile little candle, listening to ghosts howl, hoping the glass doesn't break.
Very true.
And then suddenly, in line 13, the speaker basically throws the front door open and taunts the universe.
It is quite the shift.
Is this like a psychological break, or is there a structural mechanism making this pivot believable?
It feels like a leap until you realize the nature of the safety has shifted.
Shift in how?
The literary analyses point out that in this couplet, the entire meaning of the poem flips from literal to figurative.
Oh, okay.
It becomes an extended metaphor. The storm ceases to be a weather event.
Right.
It represents the dangers, the hardships, and the terrifying uncertainties of life.
And the little house represents the speaker's own life.
Exactly.
And the rock represents an unshakable foundation.
Specifically, and unshakable faith.
Oh, I see.
The safety the speaker feels doesn't come from the walls of the house or the warmth of the little fire. It comes entirely from what is beneath the house.
Right, right.
In that final couplet, the rock ceases to be geological and becomes theological.
That's powerful. And our sources point out a very famous intertextual connection here, too.
Yes, the biblical parallel.
Right. The poem draws on the biblical story of building a house on a solid rock rather than on shifting sand, so that when the floods come, the foundation holds.
And that foundation is exactly what allows the speaker to issue that bold challenge.
It's that classic movie moment, isn't it?
Totally.
Where the protagonist stops running, turns around, looks the monster in the eye, and yells, "Bring it on!"
Bring it on, exactly. And the poet uses a barrage of alliteration to drive this home.
How so?
The repeated W sounds in the original Afrikaans weir and wind, weather and wind.
Weir and wind.
Yeah, it sounds almost like a series of rapid strikes. It emphasizes an incredibly bold, defiant stance against the elements.
Wow.
The howling goats outside lose their power because the foundation cannot be moved.
To build a rock that strong requires looking at the architect, I think.
Definitely.
Because this poem hits entirely differently when you look at the historical context provided in our sources regarding the man who penned those words.
H.A. Fagan.
Yes, H.A. Fagan. The storms he was dealing with in his life were not just ocean breezes.
Not at all. Fagan, who lived from 1889 to 1964, navigated immense societal and political turbulence.
He was a really highly influential figure in South Africa, right?
He was. The historical notes detail some massive milestones in his career.
Yeah.
Like he was the first judge to take his oath of office in Afrikaans.
Wow.
And he actually translated the oath himself from English.
I read he also provided the first Afrikaans translation of Nkosi Sikel I Afrika, the anthem.
He did, yes.
But, I mean, why does a judge translating an anthem matter to the theme of this poem?
Well, think about it. Translating an anthem like that in a deeply fractured society is an act of bridging divides.
That makes sense.
It shows a man who understood the profound power of language to shape identity. He was attempting to build a shared, unified foundation, a societal rock, for a very complex nation.
His legal career was built on establishing foundational truths.
Exactly.
Now, obviously, whenever we touch on highly charged historical politics, we want to be super clear with you, the listener, that we are just imparting what our historical sources document. We never take political sides on this show.
Right, absolutely. We just report what the historical texts say.
And the historical sources we're looking at frame his post-retirement actions as highly controversial for the era.
They do.
Without weighing in on the politics of the 1950s, the sources make it clear that stepping out against the government's apartheid policies made him a target of intense societal blowback.
Very intense.
After he retired from his legal career in 1959, he strongly and publicly spoke out against the apartheid policy.
Yeah.
And taking a public stand against a deeply entrenched systemic policy, especially as a retired official in that era that required immense personal courage.
Fagan lived his metaphor.
He really did.
The backlash, the societal and political pressures of his time, those were his howling winds.
Wow.
Those were the restless ghosts at his windows, complaining and searching for a way to break his resolve.
So he wasn't just writing a theoretical exercise about faith in a vacuum.
Not at all.
He was writing about having a foundation strong enough to let you stand up when it would be so much easier to just stay inside your little house, by your little fire, and ignore the storm.
He was able to stand firm against those societal storms because his core principles, his rock, were unshakable.
That completely changes how I read the poem.
Right. The poem is a reflection of his own architecture of resilience. He knew that the only way to challenge the darkness, to throw open the door and say, "Come weather and wind," was to be absolutely certain of the ground you were standing on.
We started with what seemed like a simple, almost Crete poem about a vulnerable little house by the sea. But by digging into the linguistic mechanics, we saw how the poet used the very structure of the words, the embracing rhyme scheme acting as load-bearing walls, the stark contrasts of the diminutives, the aggressive alliteration to build a literal manual for resilience.
It's incredible.
And we saw how H.A. Fagan lived out those principles in the intense historical context of South Africa, proving that the foundation is the only thing that matters.
It really is a masterclass in how form, metaphor, and lived context elevate a piece of art into something universally applicable to the human condition.
Which leaves us with a final thought to mull over based on the mechanics of resilience we've unpacked today.
I love a good final thought.
We spend so much of our lives decorating the inside of our metaphorical little house, don't we?
We really do.
We focus on making it warm, tight, and comfortable. We light our little fires and our little candles to make ourselves feel secure against the outside world.
Right.
But when was the last time you went outside in the dark to check your foundation?
Oh, that's a great question.
Because when the howling winds of life finally come, the storm won't care how warm your fire is.
No, it won't.
It will only test whether you built your life on shifting sand or if you built it on a rock.